We're live, so I'm super excited to be here. So we've got folks already starting to join us. As you're joining us, maybe just check in, make sure my sound is going well. So Maurice Thomas says, "Hey Kevin, ready to go?" So Maurice, thank you for being here. Everyone else, if you could, just because technology is great until it's not, let me know that you can hear me. Click the little thumbs up. Uh, Write a comment, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, just letting me know that you can hear me. And I'm going to share something here real quick. So I'm just going to do a quick little administrative thing. So we're going to get started here shortly. So I'm just going to share this to the group. And where am I? On Facebook. So anyway, thank you everyone for joining us. We're going to be talking about selling internationally, how it's, I think, one of the best ways to really grow your sales. And one of the challenges is if you're selling on Amazon, it's great once you're up and running, but there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through on the front end. And that tends to throw a lot of people off. So I want to help answer any questions you might have about that. So we are going to do this in an Ask Me Anything format. And so we're going to get started here shortly. So I'm going to go ahead and share this to the group. And there we go. So voila. So we are live. So thank you everyone for joining. And again, if you can hear me, do me a favor and just let me know that you can hear me. So all right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with me, my name is Kevin Sanderson from Maximizing E-commerce, and I help people with their e-commerce businesses. I've been selling on Amazon since 2015. Wow, that's a long time ago. Started dabbling in retail arbitrage, and then eventually got to the point where I wanted to sell my own brand. And so I started that in 2016. And one of the things I learned along the way very quickly was that if I wanted to grow, the thing that I really needed to do was to get my offers in front of more customers. So at the end of the day, to grow, it's really two things. You can either sell more things or sell things to more people. And so really what it comes down to is, you got to have a product to sell and you got to have people to sell to. So at a certain point in the US, it can be very easy to get to a point where you've exhausted that traffic of people that are visiting your listings or potential traffic. And so you either have to add more products, which you should do, definitely not against that, and you should add more people to sell to. So oftentimes it's going into other marketplaces, adding your own store, finding ways to get more people there. And so I think it's super advantageous for everyone as you're deciding, okay, what are the ways I have to grow? So if you think about it, you can go to, Walmart, you can go to your own store, you can go to eBay. Oftentimes folks tend to find that if you already understand Amazon, you understand how Amazon works, and Amazon brings you traffic. And there tends to be less competition in international marketplaces. And so I want to just show something here because I think it's very relevant here with the holiday season coming up. So let me just show something here real quick. So I'm going to bring up onto my screen. So let me just share this. Share screen. And we've got, all right, so let me go ahead and maximize that. So this is a screenshot from last year. So this is actually, I took that on Christmas Eve. So that's 30 days of sales going back beyond that. So it's kind of hard to see. I wish I could blow that up. Whatever reason, my PowerPoint is not being helpful, but you can see there. So in the United States, that first line where you see the US flag and says United States, Amazon.com, I did just shy of $72,000. So $71,880 ish. Now, if you were to add all the other countries together, my total sales for those 30 days leading up to Christmas Eve, we'll just call that the holiday selling season, that was $112,000. And so I had a 56% bump in sales on top of my US sales. So I would have gotten the US sales regardless. And I added on that extra 56% bump in sales during the busiest time of the year because I was offering my products in those other countries like Canada, like the European countries and in Australia. So definitely now is a good time to start looking into this. Now, I'm in all these different countries. I wouldn't suggest trying to do all of them at once. Start with maybe Canada or start with the UK, but just start with one and get moving with it. Um, so I'll answer some questions here in just a minute, but I just want to at least share with you now, of course, uh, different factors go into it. So, can't guarantee what your sales would be if you do go into another marketplace, but at least this is what it was for me. And I probably would have had higher sales, but in Canada and the UK, which were my highest selling marketplaces, I started running out of stock because I wasn't expecting my sales to go up quite as much. In fact, you can see, so year over year, let me see if I can. PowerPoint must have frozen on me. So, oh well, we'll go without it. But year over year, my sales were my growth of sales were much higher in Canada and the UK than they were in the US. And so, what that looks like this year, don't know, but at least wanted to show you what is possible. So, let's go ahead and get into some of the questions. So, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we will answer those questions. So, Yarrow on YouTube says, "Hey Kevin, hey Yarrow, good to see you. Have you tried to start the same listing from US and Canada or Europe?" And then he says, "How is the situation with reviews migration to Canada or to Europe? Or if you recreate the listing there, are they getting all transferred?" So Amazon's doing some catalog things right now. And right now, I would say not all products are going through as seamlessly as they would have a year ago. So there could be some catalog issues, but I'm a firm believer that eventually Amazon has an incentive to get whatever issues there are fixed. And so I'm working through that with some of the clients I have in my done for you service. And I am seeing reviews transfer over. I know there's challenges. So one of the things I would pay attention to is if you're using the UPC code, let's say, to add your listing in the other marketplace. So if it's, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or whatever it is your UPC code. So put that as your product identifier, and then UPC is that. And then it will find your product in Amazon's catalog. So what should happen, and again, sometimes there's weird things that happen and they don't know why, but what should happen is your reviews should carry over and your images should carry over automatically. And then you just put in whatever, title, bullet points, description. And if you're selling in UK and Canada, you're probably going to use the same ones. If you're in some of the foreign language marketplaces, you'll probably, I would highly recommend you translate them. Definitely, if you can afford it, get a good translator. If that's out of your budget, at least start with Google Translate. Having something is better than nothing, I think. And so what could happen that I have seen happen, some weird stuff I've seen, where if you're adding the listing individually, it doesn't tell you there's an issue. It just says successfully completed or whatever the little box is when you add a listing. That it's completed, that you've done whatever you're supposed to do. And then it says, wait 15 minutes, and you wait an hour and it's still not there. And then if you try to do it as a bulk upload template, what ends up happening in those cases is sometimes you'll see a couple of weird errors. One of the errors could be that you cannot add listings for this brand. And so there's some weird things with that. And Amazon may ask you to send pictures of the product with the UPC identifier. I'm seeing lots of weird stuff with that. So it is possible that you might not get your full catalog, especially in Europe. I'm seeing more so than Canada. There's, again, some strange catalog issues. Things aren't transferring over as well as they should. But here's the way I look at it. If you can get your product, at least, a good chunk of your products in other marketplaces, why not? So I wouldn't let the fact that, maybe one or two products, you're still working on getting listed in, let's say, the UK, I wouldn't let that prevent you from listing the others. So that's what I tell the clients in my done for you service, that if we're having issues with catalog, and I have a client where we've gone as far as we can with, Amazon brand registry, with seller support, with whomever, and we've taken it to Jeff, so to speak. I'm sure Jeff is not the one actually reading his emails, but they do send you very nice, polite email. If you've ever emailed Jeff at Amazon.com, Jeff asked us to follow up on this. Yes, I'm sure he did, but probably more in a holistic view, not like he saw the email and forwarded it and said, please handle to somebody, but they do take a look at it. So working through, are they able to fix this issue? So some issues, they're still kind of in limbo, but what I'm having all those clients do is still send in what they can add. Because in every case, even the ones where we have, a lot of listings that just Amazon won't add and we can't get straight answers as to why. And in some cases, we even have people in the global selling team trying to add these too, and they're getting the same issues and running into the same roadblocks. So if you have that, try to at least get what you can added. Now, there are hoops you have to jump through in the front end. So make sure you have whatever compliance things you need to take care of. So in Canada, you need to apply for a business number and GST, HST registration, as well as a import-export number, which it's all kind of attached to that same business number. But get those numbers and then send stuff in. And if you do it now, depending on how soon the government gets going, then you should be able to get those products up and running for the holidays. You just got to make sure you have that business number. The UK, it depends. But what I would recommend, and I'm not a attorney here, so or a tax preparer, so make sure you do whatever you need to do. So there's two ways you could do the UK. You could just wait until you get the VAT number, and then make sure whoever's registering that, whether it's Amazon VAT Services or you're working directly with a VAT provider like Avask, then once you have that VAT number, you can send stuff in. Just make sure that they registered you for an EORI, which is basically the import number for the UK. So you want to make sure you have that. Another option you have, and this is a little riskier, so just take caution. Make sure you've at least started the process with a VAT carrier, and then to get at least a UK VAT number, for example. And then you can get the EORI number. Like you can go online with HMRC, basically the IRS of the UK, and you can get one like almost immediately. So that's a nice option there. So I would suggest, if you can, go ahead and get that registered. So that's definitely an option for you. So lots of good stuff you could do. I highly recommend also, as we're getting into the fourth quarter, which is hard to believe, but 3 days away, start looking into some of those options. And so, what are you going to do as far as when you're going into other marketplaces? Do you have the stock to go someplace else? Just start looking into what are your options. And so maybe you have time to add Walmart. Maybe you have time to do eBay or something. But whatever you think, based on data and sound principles, that will get you the highest return on your time. And because that's really the thing, is that you don't get time back more than anything else. So hopefully that's helpful and makes a lot of sense. So if you have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. And again, thank you folks for being here. So let me just check on one thing here real quick as we're doing that. So feel free to, if you have any other questions, again, drop them in the chat. So it looks like Yarrow said he will be moving listings to Europe soon. So that's awesome. And Yarrow said, thank you. It is my absolute pleasure. So again, any questions you have about selling internationally, I tend to find it is one of the absolute best ways, because if you're selling products here in the US, I'm in the US anyway, and people are probably buying similar products to yours in other marketplaces like Canada, UK, wherever. And if you are not selling in those other countries, you're probably just leaving money on the table. And with the holiday season right around the corner, can't guarantee it, because a lot of times with these registration numbers, you're waiting on government entities that you would need to get those numbers going. But if you can get those numbers before the holidays and get stuff listed and added and sent in to Amazon fulfillment centers, then that could be a nice bump in holiday sales. Because just as in the US, where people buy a lot of stuff at the holidays, people are buying Christmas gifts, Hanukkah gifts, what other kind of gifts they have and want. People are tending to buy a lot of stuff in these other marketplaces as well. So question here, am I using pan-European? No, I did do pan-European at one point. So that's a great question. So one thing to keep in mind is let's take the UK out of it. So in Europe, so in the European Union, because remember the European Union no longer includes the UK, because that's what Brexit was. They exited, the British exit of the European Union. And so the way it works is, think about the US. Most of the time I send in goods, if I create a shipment, 9 times out of 10, it ends up going to either Charlotte, North Carolina, or like Jefferson, Indiana, Jeffersonville, something or other like that. Those tend to be the two fulfillment centers I send to the most. Sometimes they have me send it to California. But no matter where I send it, Amazon's going to take parts of those shipments, and they're going to move it around wherever they want. So if they think that their algorithm thinks, oh, some people are going to be buying it in Texas, they're going to move some of it in Texas, to some of it to Michigan, some of it, to Washington State, or wherever they feel like it makes sense to house some of that inventory. Now, what ends up happening is that in Europe, they can't do it quite as easily as they can in the US, because in the US, it's in the Constitution, interstate commerce, they can move stuff around pretty much unencumbered. Whereas in Europe, it's a little different. So you have to have a VAT number. Now, make sure you talk to a VAT professional before taking any action on what I'm about to say here. This is more just for illustrative purposes. So make sure you talk to somebody about your specific situation. Now, in Europe, the European Union, again, not counting the UK, each member country is almost like a state. So just like you can move stuff freely between, let's say, Kansas and Oklahoma, you can move things kind of the same within Europe between, let's say, Germany and France. Now, the issue is, and this is where pan-European comes in as an issue, so make sure you understand this going into it, you would need to have a VAT number registered wherever you are importing goods. So if you're importing through Italy, for example, you got to have the VAT number. You need to also have a VAT number anywhere you store goods. So if goods are being stored in Germany and France and Poland and Czech Republic, which there's no Amazon.Czech Republic, but anywhere you have goods stored, which Amazon does have fulfillment centers in Czech Republic, you have VAT liability. So Amazon's going to basically have you register in all these different countries as part of the pan-European program. Now, the benefit of it is you save on some of the fulfillment fees. So if you have everything stored in Germany, but you're using that as kind of a base of operation to then send things to Italy and Spain, you can do that up until certain thresholds. They call them distance selling thresholds. Beyond that, you have to get registered. But before that, you can get started. Now, Amazon charges you more if you don't have the pan-European program. Now, what you have to weigh out is, what are your sales outside of whatever your main country is, where, like, let's say Germany, where maybe you would get a VAT number. So sales aren't always great for everybody. It depends. Always, good to try. In places like Spain and France and Italy can be very hit or miss. Some of the newer ones like Netherlands and Poland, those are, still a little hit or miss. But what I would suggest is avoid pan-European, because it's also very expensive. So even if Amazon says we'll pay for the first year, I found there was all these hidden fees. Like, I had to pay for someone to, either I could go to the consulate in Miami for Spain and fill out some form, or I could have somebody do it for me. And there was an additional cost to that. Then there's just the time, and there's all these, extra forms. And, when you think about Canada, US, UK, Australia, all these countries that are based on English common law, the law, even though maybe the details are a little different, but the skeleton's kind of the same. So everything kind of operates similarly. Whereas like in Spain, things are just done very differently. And not to say one's right or wrong. But when you're used to things being done a certain way, it can be a little more difficult. So to register in all these countries, to send money to all these different countries can be very difficult. So I tend to recommend avoiding pan-European. It's expensive, and in most cases, it's not worth the additional expense. If you start testing out in different countries, and you're selling, maybe you're VAT registered in Italy and Germany to start off with, test out France, Spain, to see how are your sales, how are things performing before you decide to go all in on um, the uh, uh, the pan-European program. So hopefully that made sense. So clear from VAT perspective, only business perspective, you need to compensate 10K for managing it by a VASC or others. So you need to sell good. Exactly. So that's a very well put way of putting it. So prices are going to range depending on the company, depending on the level of service they have. I wouldn't skimp on service, especially with something that has a lot of landmines and also a lot of things that could save you money if you know it. And so I would recommend hiring, a full service VAT provider to do things like I use a VASC. They've more than paid for themselves over time. Um, they pointed out a few things I didn't realize that, it saved me a lot of money, more than I've even paid for them over the years. So that's something to keep in mind that I wouldn't have known otherwise. And so if you're using, Amazon VAT services, it's great because it's budget friendly, but I'm finding, even just talking to the people that actually on the back end perform Amazon VAT services from from other companies that are basically farmed out for, doing the compliance stuff, they don't have the same level of service. And so I think they're probably paid not as much by Amazon as they would get, with maybe a full service client. So you tend to get kind of what you pay for. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way. It's just what people have told me. So, and what I've kind of seen with some clients that I've worked with who have worked with Amazon VAT services. So it could be worth it. But in the long run, whether it's Amazon VAT services or full service, whether it's, a few $1,000s or $10,000, it could be a lot of money that you could be paying for pan-European. And is that worth the savings on the fulfillment fees? If you're a really large seller, maybe. If not, I wouldn't bet the farm on it. And so, because if you're registered in Germany and you're holding stock in Germany, you're not paying cross-border fulfillment fees within Germany. So hopefully that makes sense. So let me know what other questions y'all have. I just want to give a plug real quick. On October 12th, so as we're recording this, or we're live, but I should say, as we're live here on September 28th. So if you're watching the replay, on October 12th, I'm going to be hosting the Ppc Mastery Summit Q4 edition. So I have not formally announced this on my list. And so by Thursday, I will have a sign up. And so I've got some really great speakers. It's just going to be one day. I know everybody's super busy preparing for Q4, but let's be honest. When do we spend the most money on PPC? It's Q4. It's the holiday season. So I want to make sure that we're all set up to really maximize both sales and better spend ad costs. And so keep an eye out. If you're on my email list, you will see, if you follow me on social, you'll probably see a lot of stuff about it too. So it's just going to be one day, October 12th. I've got, some really good experts, they're going to be walking you through ways that you can, grow your sales, better spend your ad budget during the holiday season. Because, like for me, I've had some years where November and December way outpaced the rest of the year. So 10 months was overshadowed by 2. And so it just becomes a very critical time for a lot of us. And so I just want to make sure we're all set up for success. So that will be coming soon. So that will be October 12th. And again, signups for that will probably start here in about 2 days. So I will say, in fact, I'll commit to it no later than end of day on Thursday will I send out an email saying, hey, PPC Mastery Summit Q4 edition. And that's going to, again, October 12th, one day. The same kind of format if you've been to my last couple of summits, where it's $7 to join and you can purchase the recordings. And I've got some great bonuses and things like that. So insider tip, you can get some really cool bonuses on the confirmation page if you upgrade to VIP, and some other cool bonuses that pretty much more than pay for the upgrade itself. So it's kind of a no-brainer bonus is the way I like to make things. So, all right. So let me know if you have any other questions. Yarrow, you had some great questions there. Anyone else, feel free to jump in. I know Maurice at the beginning said he was ready to go. And so we'll jump in here shortly with any other questions you have, because I want to make sure that we have everybody ready to go. So let me know again, you have any other questions, you can drop them into the chat. And so it looks like we've got Mohammed, Fahad, Javid, hopefully I said that right. So if you're selling on Amazon US already, is there anything recommended in terms of taxes? Before diving into Canada, I heard that tax system in Canada is pretty complex for US based sellers. I would argue the opposite. And so if you talk to, I know Amazon is taking care of a lot of the sales tax for most states, for most sellers. If you talk to sales tax experts, I don't want to open up a can of worm, and this is just my personal opinion. So this is not, please don't take this as tax advice. Please talk to a tax professional about your situation, because there's a lot of nuances here, but it's not as simple, especially sales tax, and is not as simple as it sounds. So in the US, because remember, you've got 50, well, not all 50 states charge sales tax, but 44 states or whatever it is that charge sales tax. And so all those states have slightly different rules, slightly different whatever. Amazon's trying to make it as simple as possible. But when you go into Canada, you register, and if you're selling less than $1.5 million Canadian dollars in sales in Canada, you only have to file once a year. And basically, Amazon's going to be, you just put in your GST HST number. That's what they call their sales tax, goods and services tax, and harmonized sales tax, GST HST. You put your GST HST number in Seller Central, and Amazon will start collecting it based on whatever the jurisdiction is. So if the person lives in Ontario versus if someone lives in, let's say, Alberta, they charge whatever the appropriate amount is, and then they give it to you as part of your what you have. They're also going to charge you on top of your selling fees, or sorry, on top of your fulfillment fees. They're going to charge you GST. And they're also going to charge you, not Amazon's going to charge you, but you're going to be charged most likely when you go across the border, GST. And so you're going to bill for like customs and duties and all that fun stuff. And the biggest part of that is generally going to be GST. You can take that in most cases as a credit. So if you basically think of, you collected X amount from customers, which is added on top of the selling price, unlike in Europe where it's included in the selling price. And then you subtract out the GST you paid on fulfillment fees, what you paid at the border. If you have any other business related fulfillment, or not fulfillment fees, but GST that you paid, that also gets subtracted out as credits. And then whatever the difference is you pay to the government. So when you think about it, you have certain things like you're going to have to pay no matter what, like the GST when you cross the border, the GST charged on top of fulfillment fees. The customers are paying you back for that in essence, when you really think about it. And then you just basically, so for this year, I'll have to file with the Canadian government for by March 31st. And so the nice thing too is with that is that if you are if you're filing this yourself, it's actually pretty simple. You just put your total sales and total amount collected. You don't have to get into like jurisdictions and all this other stuff with the GST. Now they could change that in the future, but right now it's actually, I have found to be very simple. And shout out to the folks at the Canadian Revenue Agency. I tend to find they're probably the most helpful government agency I've ever dealt with. And no offense to the state of Florida or the county officials here where I live. It's just, they're super nice, super helpful in Canada. So if you have questions, just call them. Like, that stereotypical Canada is people are nice. It's true. And they actually take pride in that. And so sometimes Americans get kind of put off by the thought of stereotypes, but like it's more of a pride thing in Canada. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I've talked to Canadians a lot and they're like, oh yeah, we definitely, we want to make sure that we are, that we're super nice and super friendly. So, yeah, so that's basically what we have going on, there. So, all right. So A couple things here. Mohammed said, "Yep, pronounce it perfectly." I'm glad so. I understand you provide consultant services for Canada expansion. Can you elaborate? Yeah, I do. So basically, depending on your budget, I have a done for you service where we just basically do everything. We help you figure out pricing, we get the listings added, all that fun stuff, and get you set up, get you to the point you can start sending stuff in. And then basically now you have this and the registration and everything. The other option is we've got, basically you could meet with me and I could, walk you through it, as well as kind of somewhere in between. So, kind of more of a done with you. So, done for you project management, where my team and I basically act as your project manager to get you launched, which now could be a really good time with the holidays right around the corner. And then the other options are, just, hourly consulting or somewhere in between. So those are basically the options. And I know you were emailing me, so just shoot me an email and let me know if you're interested in finding out more. We can chat more to see if it's the right fit for you. If not, no worries. Exactly, both GST and HST are different. We need to price our products on those GST, HST. No. So just as it's the nice thing. So just as here, whether the customer lives in Dallas, Texas, or Miami, Florida, they're going to have different sales tax rates, but Amazon calculates that for you. If the customer lives in London, Ontario, or Calgary, Alberta, Amazon will figure that out for you. It's added on top of the selling price. It's just unlike the US, they're going to give it to you if you have that registration number. Now, you would, of course, be responsible for sending that in, but sending it in minus the credits, which basically you're getting back. So hopefully that math makes sense. And yeah, GST, HST sounds really complicated. Goods and services tax, harmonized sales tax. So basically, think of it this way. In Canada, instead of being administered province by province, which I'm going to put an asterisk here, in most provinces, it's managed at the federal level, meaning it's almost like as if you were going to, in the US, going to the IRS to file sales tax, which do not try to send your sales tax info to the IRS. They won't know what to do with it. That's not their function. In Canada, the Canadian Revenue Agency, who handles, income tax and stuff like that, that is their function, is the GST and HST. And so GST is kind of like, I'm gonna grossly oversimplify it, but GST, the goods and services tax, is kind of like for the participating provinces, which is most of them. It's kind of like, let's call it the base amount. And then the HST is kind of like what's more local. Now, what's crazy is you just say, be honest, but you just pull the sales report from Amazon. This is my sales. This is how much was collected. So that's kind of like 2 boxes. There's like 5 or 6 boxes you have to fill out on the form. I don't even think you have to fill out all of them, but it's pretty simple. So you just, I don't know how they decide amongst themselves, like, okay, this gets allocated here, this much goes there. No, you just tell them this is what I collected. And that's just how they manage it. I mean, it's super simple. I really can't stress how simple it is with their sales tax in Canada. So I wouldn't let the fear of GST, HST get in the way. And it's common for folks. It's kind of like that saying that, oftentimes the borders that stop us from going into international market, but I guess it's not really saying, this is more just my analogy. The borders that prevent us from going into other countries and selling are mostly in our head. They're not necessarily with in the other countries. They're usually just here. So they're usually not something, in the world that's really holding us back. It's our mind. And so GST, HST is super simple once you understand it. So yeah, that's cool. So hopefully that made sense. So, all right. So anyone else, let me know if you have any questions. Again, the holiday season is right around the corner. Let me just share this on my screen here real quick. So this is last year. Basically my sales in the US for the 30 days leading up to Christmas Eve, where this is all in US dollars, if you can see it, but I'll read it out for you a little bit. was approximately $72,000. And it had about a 20% bump just in Canada, with about 16,000, the equivalent of about 16,000 US dollars in sales. And then in Europe, another 22,000. So basically, my almost $72,000 month ended up, if you do the math between all the different countries, ended up being a little over 112,000. I don't remember the exact number. I had it written down somewhere, but basically over 120, 112. I don't want to exaggerate, about $112,000 total in sales. So basically, I got a 56% bump in sales by offering my sales internationally. Now, I would not recommend to anyone try to go into every single country you see there between now and the holidays. But is there a chance you could be selling in Canada by the end of the year? Yes. Can I guarantee it? No. But what if you're not? Now you have the sales channel that'll be with you for years to come. And so another thing I just want to point out there is that this is kind of one of the benefits of it. So I I've talked to different people in the buying and selling world, and what oftentimes they'll say is that you basically take whatever your profit was times a multiple, and that's what your business is worth. And so if you have more profits, even if it's theoretically was in Canadian dollars before you moved to US dollars, that could make your business more profitable. Now, the flip side is some savvy buyers will say, yeah, but I look for businesses that don't have international sales. Because why is that? Because that's one of the first things they want to add. I've talked to people that have made this argument that that is one of the easiest ways to add value to a business. So if you're selling your business within the next 12 months, maybe this isn't something you necessarily would want to do. But if you're like, I'm keeping it for at least the next year or two, if not longer, start looking into international channels. Even if you're not up and running by the holidays, you're adding value to your business, you're adding cash flow to your business. And I have only found one person who's ever told me their sales on Walmart.com in the US exceeded their Amazon.ca sales. There's probably more examples out there, but generally speaking, folks will tell me it's usually Amazon in the US. And then if they're selling in international marketplaces and off Amazon, um, in almost all cases, it's something like either Canada or the UK is next, and then maybe Germany. Um, Depends on some other factors. So if you're not selling in international marketplaces, whether um, uh, for the whatchamacallit, the holiday season, you're missing out. And if it's just don't have the time to figure it out between now and the holiday season, then so be it. You could still do it long term. This is not a get rich quick scheme. This is a add long term value to your business fundamental. So it looks like Muhammad asks, got it now. Thanks a lot. One last thing. Do we need to register a tax number with Canadian Revenue Agency so that Amazon will collect the GSTs for us? Yes. There's 3 different offices for non-resident registrations for the Canadian Revenue Agency. They are uh, all super friendly, but it all depends on where you live. So either the state in the US or the country you live in. So outside of the US, they don't really look at it by province or state or whatever. They just look at it as, okay, you're in Australia, then you go to this one. So, but if you live in Texas versus Florida, you'd be sending it to a different place. I would recommend faxing it in and keeping your fax confirmation that it went through, if you do this yourself. And so what are the time constraints to get started? So basically the big thing is figuring out, here for chess. I got into chess without the T earlier this year. And so I have a membership on chess.com. So I'm not that good, but I'm getting better. So what are the time constraints to get started? Time constraints, the biggest thing is the registrations. I recommend starting the registration process first thing, because you're going to end up waiting on a government agency somewhere, whether it's the UK, Spain, Canada, wherever. You're going to wait on somebody's government to say, here's your number. That's the biggest constraint. So definitely make sure you have all those boxes checked off. But then from there, it's adding your listings, which you can do in the meantime. It's making sure you got the right pricing for different marketplace because it's going to be in a different currency. So there's all that, to note as well. So if time is a constraint of you, shoot me an email, kevin@maximizingecommerce.com. I do have services depending on what your budget or needs are, or we could potentially look at helping you with some of this. And then Maurice said, I see 0 sales in Mexico. Is there a reason why? Yes. So I do have some sales in Mexico from North American Remote Fulfillment, although they're minuscule this year because I added NARF in Mexico. But the thing about Mexico is you really need to set up a separate company in Mexico, like have a Mexican lawyer set up a company because you need an RFC ID, which is like their import number, and it's a lot more complex process. So again, what I was saying before about like English common law and countries that used to be part of England tend to have the same structure. Well, yeah, I guess Mexico would have been part of Spain at one point. I think even part of France, if I remember my history correctly. Either way, their laws don't flow the same. And so things don't work the same. And not that they're wrong and we're right, but it's just different. And so if you're just accustomed to this is how you register, these are just how things are done with laws and governments, it's going to be a very different experience. And really to make it worth your while, from everyone I've talked to who's sold in Mexico, not just, using NARF, you really need to have a presence on Mercado Libre, which is like kind of like I hate to say the Amazon of Mexico, but it's a marketplace that tends to do better than than Amazon, from what a lot of people have told me. And anyone who's used tools, I won't say names of companies, but the Chrome extensions that tell you what the sales are likely for, similar products to yours. I've seen people get really excited about what they believed to be the sales numbers based on what these extensions were telling them in Mexico. And anytime they've gone through the process to figure all this out, they've become extremely underwhelmed. And so really disappointed in what their sales were. And I think some of it is nothing against these tools, but they just don't have as much data in Mexico as they do in other countries. I lost my got a little fuzzy there. But anyway, let me know if you have any other questions. Feel free to drop them in the chat. But Mexico is one I would say long term, maybe it's on my maybe someday list, but I'm not in a hurry to do it. I won't say I'm definitely never going to do it, but it's not a priority at this time for me. All right. So any other questions, feel free to let me know. If international selling sounds good to you, a couple things you could do. You could email me at kevin@maximizingecommerce.com. I'll do my best to answer whatever questions you have. I do offer consulting services as well as project management services, and done with you, done for you, depending what your budgets and your needs are, to help you get up and running in some of those marketplaces. Clock is ticking. You might be able to still get up and running in some of the countries before the holiday season. And even if you don't, you'd have a long-term asset in your business that once you're up and running, you're really just kind of feeding it inventory. And back to the question that was asked earlier about time constraints. If you have less impressions and less clicks and less sales, I can just tell you this. I have found I need to optimize my PPC campaigns less often. And I've already done most of the work, especially in English speaking countries, to figure out keywords and things like that. Especially in Canada, they use almost the exact same words that we use here. Just with some, let's say regional differences, kind of like in Texas versus Boston or California and in between. There's going to be some slight differences in the language people use, but it's going to be pretty much the same. UK gets a little different, nuanced. A jumper is a sweater or sweatshirt. Just little things like that, which sometimes you'll just learn as you get up and running. But in the English-speaking countries, you can pretty much just use PPC data you already have. Of course, adjust the bids for the marketplace that you're in. But because the currency is going to be different. So, £1 is about 1.35 to 1.4 US dollars. So if you're bidding, $1 in the US and you put 1.00 in the UK, that's a lot higher bid than it probably even needs to, because in most cases there's going to be less competition, so people are probably actually bidding less. So just keep that in mind. You'd be overbidding because of that currency difference. So if this sounds of interest to you, another opportunity you could have is just go to internationalchecklist.com. You can download a free checklist which will walk you through step by step how to do some of this stuff. And again, if you just say this sounds interesting, but I've got a lot of spinning plates in the air right now and I just want some help with it, feel free to go to kevin@maximizingecommerce.com, or email, I should say, email me at kevin@maximizingecommerce.com. And, maybe we can set up a time to chat. And so do have a variety of options that could help you out, get you a roadmap of what to do. So hopefully this was helpful to you. I wish you the best in your e-commerce journey, and make sure to mark your calendar for October 12th, which will be doing the Ppc Mastery Summit Q4 edition, just one day. I know we got a lot on our plate, so I wasn't going to do a 3-4 day summit. We're just going to do one day with some really awesome speakers that I like, some of the favorites from previous summits, who are going to be sharing with you some of their best tips and strategies for really making this a successful Q4 season. So just as I'm talking about, international is a great way to set up your Q4 season, selling through paid advertising and maximizing that and having the best strategies and mindset going into it, I think is just going to help you no matter what you do. And with PPC, if you're running paid ads, it's going to be happening no matter what. If internationally you're saying, January 1st, then that's a different story. But PPC, it's coming no matter what. And so people start clicking more, they start looking more. And so, just things you have to keep out for. So definitely excited about that, October 12th. And I've committed to, if you're on my email list or follow me on social media, you'll start seeing details of how to get signed up no later than end of day on Thursday here in 2 days. So it is, if you've gotten all the way through and you're watching the replay, we're doing this on September 28th, which is a Tuesday. So in 2 days, I will have that. So really excited that you're here, and thank you so much. Wish you the best in your e-commerce journey. Take care.